Alright, so just like the video I did on Caster Shootin', I want to do a video talking about if we can fix the Samba Quetzalcoatl or the Christmas Quetzalcoatl, whatever you want to call her, because unlike Shootin', she doesn't feel like she's beyond saving, right? Like Shootin' seems like she has a lot of fundamental problems and she's gonna need a couple of buffs, but I honestly think we could kind of turn Quetzalcoatl around rather easily, right? Like it's not really going to be all that hard to do because she's already got a pretty good established game plan, and we're going to talk about what we can do to fix her in today's video. But before we begin, if you have not already, make sure to leave a like on the video and you subscribe to the channel for that sweet daily FGO content, because your boy is out here trying to make sure that you are informed on the goings on both the NA and JP version of the game. And if you want to see me play FGO live, I do that every weekday starting at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over on my Twitch, which is linked down in the description down below. So without further ado and all that, YouTuber intro stuff out of the way, let's go ahead and start talking about Quetzalcoatl. Now, actually, when it comes to her hits, because she's more of a, well, I don't want to say newer servant, but she ain't a year one, she's not that old. Her hits are actually pretty fun. I would have rather her had maybe an additional arts card, but with the whole thing of her being like a star genning servant, and she wants to kind of be the person that could provide stars for the party and also provide like crit damage and everything, kind of just being a general crit support, I think it's fine. Because in general, you'll probably just be doing crits on the arts card, and with that 0.71%, you should be fine when it does come to refunding your NP. And because she is a free NP5, she has a little bit of value in the fact that she could do some pretty solid damage if you don't have another just like general buster AoE person. Because she's a ruler, you can bring her to pretty much anything, and she'll generally hit guys for neutral damage, as long as they're not like an Avenger or something. But how often are you fighting Avengers? Not all that often, I don't think. So, being able to get to that NP, that's going to kind of turn on her ability to gen stars for the party, and the fact that it can also do some pretty good damage does give her a little bit of value. But I think that is kind of the ultimate issue with Quetzalcoatl, is that it's kind of hard to get to her NP if you're just starting off from like 0 or even 50% without any really heavy support investment. And then when you get there, because they wanted her to be like Iskandar or Emiya, like where she could be this buster AoE servant that drops a lot of stars, but they gave her very low hits, she doesn't even really get to do that very well. Like, it seems a little lackluster. So there are two ways that I think we could go about fixing her, because I think her first skill is fine. I don't really think you need to change this. I like the idea of her kind of being this crit support servant, so she's going to give attack to everybody else, because presumably they're going to be doing crits, and you want them to have a little bit of a buff to their just general damage. And then the fact that she's providing stars every single turn to supplement her own star gen, that's just really good design, right? And then the fact that this is targetable, this ability to make one of your allies have pretty good star weight for a turn, and then a little bit of extra star gen so they can kind of gen some stars somewhere, that's also just really nice in general as well, because they keep that for 3 turns. You can give it to herself, because her star absorption is not bad as a ruler, but she could definitely use a little bit. And then the bonus to the star gen will be nice, because even though I would like her to have an additional arts card, the fact that she's got 2 stronger quick cards with 4 hits to pop, it is going to mean that if you want to use it on her, she'll be even better when it comes to genning stars, especially on, say, an NP turn, right, where she fires this, and if you have 2 of her quick cards, then she could actually be a little bit better. And that's presumably why they didn't want to give her an insane 10-hit NP or something, so she could drop a lot of stars. But you'll notice that people like, say, Raiko or Emiya or Iskandar have a much easier job dropping a lot of stars on their buster AoE NPs. One, because of the star gen buff, but also they have pretty high hits on their NPs as well, so they're able to get a lot of mileage out of that. But for the one thing that I think we could do is just whenever we could buff the NP, right? That would give it a little bit more damage. And if we're not going to give her a damage mod or anything, it would just kind of take her damage and bump it up a little bit, which would mean that Quetzalcoatl will just be even more of a free damage dealer if you just need a good buster AoE. It would give her a little bit of value in that, which I think, because they're permanently available, is something that would be nice to harp on, right? It's why I think it's really cool that Kentucky Rider is now available permanently on JP, and should be available on 2 years on NA, unless they bring it earlier, which I'm hoping they will do. But it's really nice that you can just have access to this really strong, just easily splashable, high damaging single target servant, and I think we could do something very similar with Quetz. But then buffing that up would give her more damage. But then I think for those turns where you're not getting a whole lot of damage, you could additionally give Quetzalcoatl the ability to maybe drop just like 20 stars on NP, or I would like that ability to be slapped onto her third skill, right? Which again is decent enough, but if I had to go with one of them, I like the NP buff for the good general damage, and then maybe tacking on 20 stars being dropped, maybe 25, 30, something along those lines, and then maybe buffing this up to like 50% for 3 turns, because again, like, you're not going to really be consistently firing it all that much, so I think bumping it up to 50, so when you do fire it, you could really take advantage of those stars. But I do actually prefer buffing the third skill over here, because again, this is good because this means Quetz's damage is going to be very strong, because this is going to multiply into the first skill. Different buff types in FGO are multiplicative. You know, she can do some pretty solid damage, some solid crits with this setup. This I do think is nice because it allows her to do some solid buster crits. And I get that they didn't want to give her like just base star gen, or like not star gen, but star weight. But again, I have found in some of my usage of Samba Quetz that doing this can be kind of detrimental on turns that I really want to crit on the arts card. But a way to supplement that is by not only adding, well, you know, like the 20 stars for this skill, so that way she could immediately provide stars as a crit support, which I think would be good, because then she'd have the ability to do passive stars, immediate stars, and then maybe star bombs with the NP, especially if you could follow up with the quick cards. But then I would also like to see a 30 to a potential 50% battery. I mean, hey, she came out with Kentucky Rider, who already has a 50% battery. Let's just slap one on my girl Samba Quetz over here, but I'll still take a 30%. Because a 30% battery is still good enough for her to be able to do buster farming with Tamamovich. And even though, again, people would be like, oh, she wouldn't be like the best person for it, it would at least be like a really solid free-to-play option, like a free NP5 option that you could grab that's a neutral against everybody. That would just be able to put in some decent work until you can get somebody a bit better. There are other servants, like say Coup Caster, that are like low rarity, that are really good options for buster farming, but he's also story locked, and so you may only just have the one caster Coup, right? You may not be able to get higher NP copies of him for quite a while, right? Unless you're an absolute mad lad and you summon on the story banner, which I never recommend. So I think that could be really nice, in the same vein that, again, Kentucky Rider is just a very good, widely available, good DPS that anybody can get now because of this most recent buff with the Servant Leaves. And I think the same thing could be done with Quetzalcoatl. That's why I would really like to see the skill get buffed, because you could toss them a battery. And that's a very common buff that you'll see me want a lot of these older servants to get, because some of the more older servants can struggle a little bit when it comes to their NP refund or their ability to kind of get their way to their NP. And I think that is just something you could do that generally helps them out a lot. I mean, look at someone like Ilya, right? She's pretty old as a servant, right? And people would kind of complain that it's a bit difficult to get to her NP, so they just slapped on a 50% battery, and I haven't heard anybody complain about using Ilya. Then again, I haven't really heard a whole lot of people use Ilya in general, but from the few people I've heard, at the very least, they're like, okay, this definitely feels a lot nicer now that she's got this big fat battery, and I hope Quetzalcoatl could get the same thing, because again, I would like the servants that they bring back, because they could realistically do them all at once. I don't see why they couldn't. But if they were going to bring them back like this, like in little batches, I would hope that they were going to do it in regards to like some events. You could give them some buffs or something, and then kind of treat it as, I don't want to say a toolbox, but kind of like that, right? Like it would be something where it'd be really good for newer players to gain access to these servants that can maybe do basic things that other people couldn't do, right? And again, you still got to make it through like Solomon and stuff, right? Like you got to invest a little bit into the game to then get some of these more decent servants, or hopefully they would be decent after their buffs. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I think, just again, not a servant that's beyond redemption, but I think something along those lines, either if we want to kind of buff the NP, or if we want to go for the third skill, which I really do want. I think either one of those could really help her out a lot and give her some value. Again, not all the free-to-play servants are going to be the most valuable for like all the people that have been playing for like 7 years, right? They can't make her like that crazy, I don't think, unless they really wanted to. I don't see why they would, but I'm thinking more for like my newer players, right? Or my guys that have just not been playing for all that long, or they just have not been getting very lucky on their rolls. Well, at least they would have somebody like this that if we kind of tweak a little bit about her kit, she would be really good for them and would be a very solid option. So that's kind of the way that I'm looking at, say, Shuten and Quetzalcoatl, because obviously for Shuten it'd be like, oh, well, you could still use like Sanzo or Ilya, right? And they'd still do better. And like Quetzalcoatl, you'll be able to find like a bunch of other Buster AoEs that would do much more work than she would, frankly. But again, it would just be really nice for people that just don't have those options. But again, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace, late guys.